So the purpose of this short video is just to give those without any background in Excel, Microsoft Excel, just something quick so that we could use it to move ahead in plotting shear force and bending moment diagrams. We will be using Excel a lot when we come to the engineering design course, which is in year 2 or year 3, right? So I will post some links to some other videos on YouTube where you would have a little more in depth into introduction to Excel for those who have never used Excel before. So for the purpose of what we're going to do in the next video, that is plotting the shear force and bending moment diagram, we're going to just briefly see how we could get the basis of Excel. So Excel is arranged into rows, and then we also have columns, right? So it's a spreadsheet. So what we could do, we could create a heading here. We could say, let's say temperature, for example, and time, right? So if you want to adjust the text, if you want to click on the sheet, you will just write over the sheet as it is so, right? So if you want to change the text, edit, you have to click up on the formula bar over here, right? So we could put degrees um, Celsius, for example. Now you notice the column is not wide enough to display it. So what we do, we come over here and we could just drag it. Right, for time, we put seconds. Right, so then we could populate this. Now we could have type in your numbers, for example. Now, if it is you were to come over to a box where you have this black plus line showing up, then if you were to left click and you hold on, and you could actually drag it on. So it would populate everything else with 10. Right? If you were to put, let's say, 1, then it will go to 1. Now, what if you want to put, we wanted to increase as the 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could put 1. We could put over here now, when you want to type in a formula, which is the power Excel, we put an equal sign first, and then we put the formula we want after. So we would put, let's say, 2 plus, and if you want to add this previous cell here, we click on it. So 2 plus 1 is 3, right? So the nice thing about Excel now is that you don't have to type over this formula again if you want to comment on here. So what we could do, if we again click this here, and as we drag it down, it will automatically update the formulas to replace the G3 cell, as we had over here, with the G4 cell. So what that means is that this column here said it was 2 plus G3, which is this cell here. Right? You can see it highlighted here. When you drag down, we actually go to now that 2 plus whatever it is in this cell. Right? And as we go down again, it will be 2 plus whatever it is in this cell. So that's what happens when we drag it down. Now, because we have nothing in this cell, it is essentially 0. So we have 2 plus 0 going short. So we could have a number here. We could have 3. So that will go to 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. 6. And so forth. Right, so again, we could drag this down here. So we have 6 going short. Now, what if we want to have ascending order of the front rows? Because when we drag, we are getting the same number replicating. So what we could do is we could start off with 1. And again, if we drag, we get 1 short. So we could say this cell will be equal. So we have to put the equal sign before, to the cell before, which is 1, plus 1. Hit enter. So it will update to 2. So what we do now is we drag this formula down. So you can see now it updates with the ascending order. So What it does, it adds one to the cell before. So you can see it changing over here. Right, so it's 1 plus the cell before. Click on this one here, it's 1 plus the cell before. Right, so let's just say this is time in seconds, and we have some formula here. Let us call this force in newtons. So let's just say the force is equal to the time times, let's just say 2. So what it does when we drag now, it will take, again, just like how we demonstrated before, it will take the cell next to it. In this case will be K4, which is 2 multiplied by 2. Likewise, it will be 3 multiplied by 2, 4 multiplied by 2. Right? So suppose now we want to plot a graph. Then what we could do is we go on top here, go and insert, and you would see some different charts here. The most common chart that we would use is this one here, called the scatter. So in your Excel might look different, but what it's essentially looking for is these scatter plots. Right? So for example, this one is without any lines. This is with the dots and the lines. This one does not show the dots, but it has the lines, so the lines will look smooth. Right? So we will go to scatter with the lines, with the markers and the lines. So we end up with something looking like this. Right? So now we need to add data to this chart. So we go to here where there's select data, and then you would have this dialog come up. So we need to add something called series. So you know sometimes on a chart we could have we could plot more than one function. Right? We could plot time versus force, we could plot time versus temperature, etc. So we're just going to do one for now. So we click on add and we name it. We name the series name, or the legend, we name it as force. Right? Because that's what we want to talk about, or what we want to plot. So the x values, so we put in x on the x-axis, or time on the x-axis. So we select range here, we click the little up arrow, and then what we do, we highlight. So we click on the left click button and we drag down and we highlight, and we hit enter. So you can see here, it takes the data from sheet 1, which we are on. You can see at the bottom here, sheet 1, and it goes from K3 to K14, which is what we have on the side here. Similarly, for the y values we said was the force. So we click and we drag. So you could see we have our line plotted here. You can click OK. So there we have it. We have our first plot of time versus force. As I go forward with the next example with the shear force and bending moment diagram, we would see how we could add a title. We could add x-axis title, y-axis title, and we could actually do two plots on one graph. So what we will do is plot the shear force and bending moment diagram on one plot, just to make things a little simpler. Right, so I hope that this should be enough. Now there'll be some other videos we could look at before moving forward. Well, in your case, you could look at. If not, you could just dive into the next video. So see you in the next video.